Hi guys, and welcome to the third episode of Wi-Fi Friends. You thought we were dead.
Number three, lucky number three.
I think I think we didn't promise too much when we started this, so it's not wild that we only do this infrequently.
Yeah, it's not like we made a schedule or like every bi-weekly we will have a new. Like no.
So this is going to be a huge question. The listeners, I don't think the listeners realize how huge of a question this is. But what have you been up to, friend?
Let's see. I just moved, got a new job.
Basically, just upended
Completely.
your whole life.
Yeah, literally the like one of the biggest changes you can make in your life. I just recently made. So it's fun. It's crazy.
It's great for views, though.
Yeah, right. It's very exciting.
Yeah. So you recently, I think if you listen to any of these episodes, I don't know if you have, if you're listening, maybe you're listening back through like 100 years from now when we're dead. It's like our kids are listening to our podcast.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah, that's the deepest we're gonna get in this podcast. Basically, you used to live in Florida and work at Disney, and
Yeah.
now you live back in Alabama. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yes, back in Alabama, working at the hotel at Auburn University.
Oh my gosh. The reason I said Alabama, am I right, is because I always confuse states and cities up in America. Like, for so long, I thought that Washington was in Washington. Like, I thought that Washington D.C. was in Washington, and then someone was like, "No,
Washington is so. I'm confused about Washington, honestly, and I live in this.
I think that's what they did. They were like, we don't want the people of America to understand politics too much, so we'll confuse them. We'll make a whole state.
Because we have like District of Columbia, and I just what? I don't get it, man.
Yeah. You have new places. Like, you took other places in the world, and you were like, we can't think of a name. This is New York.
Yeah.
This is New Mexico. Mexico's like.
Well, I believe New York was your guys' fault. Well, not you guys specifically.
I mean the whole of
the
America.
Welsh. I was gonna say I blame the. Yeah, that's. I mean,
we're gonna
the
have
Brits.
a lot of lag. I think yeah, we've got a lot of blame. I think that the funny thing is like.
Why do you say we? I mean, it's not really it's not really like Welsh people's fault.
Yeah, I feel like there were probably Welsh people involved. I mean, but at the point that we colonized America, it was, Wales had teamed up with England and Scotland at that point to become, the Great Britain. So there were a couple of people. I think that most of the people were probably English, who represented. But
Yeah.
we're the closest to you of all, except for Ireland, I guess. Ireland probably got
Yeah,
there
I
first.
guess.
But I think it's funny that so many people rushed to America. So many people rushed to like the new land, and the the white people who rushed there was so they were just like, okay, and now we're just going to discriminate against all the other people that came here. They could have just everyone else went there and was like, this is the new land, and we're gonna, the Spanish came, the French came to Canada, and everyone was like, oh, this is going to be great, and then the white people turned up and they're like, no. This is not going to be great for you.
Let's be honest though. Columbus wasn't the greatest.
No, but I think it's he was.
Well,
he was
yeah,
terrible
wait.
as well. I think everyone was terrible.
History.
Just think,
Yeah, really. Let's.
some people were.
The
better
whole
at
of
being
human
terrible.
history were all terrible.
I'm interested to think like, like a thousand years from now, when people look back at the year 2000, what are we doing that is now terrible? Like, do you think it'll be meat eating?
I had this like realization that if I ever have like grandkids or whatever,
Okay.
like I feel like there's gonna be a certain point where I'm gonna get asked, so like 2017, what happened?
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna go, honestly, honey, I don't know.
See, I have the advantage. I can just be like, well, ask your Uncle John. I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
He's the only American I know, so just blame him.
That was his country. We don't know what they started the nuclear apocalypse.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
What if they were like, what if my grandkid is like, what's America? And I'm like, oh, that's been long, John. It's just the bridge. That
I have a red phone. I have a special red phone that rings, and you're like, John, it's time. And I'm like, all right.
You have to explain what you did.
I need you to explain America.
Yeah, dude, I lied. We did not.
Yeah, what's going on with you?
We got deeper than I expected. Not as not as crazy, honestly. I think January is always a weird month for anyone. It's like it has the potential to be like, you know, oh, I'm starting anew, I'm starting afresh, but it also has the potential to be like, gosh, it's January, you know?
It's like the first page of a book, you know? And sometimes you get great first pages that really draw you in and are interesting, and then sometimes you read a book and it's like, in walked Hrothgar, the third son of the seventh demon knight of the... And you're like, all right, I'm already lost.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of world building, sir, and this is the first sentence.
I'm gonna pick up on this metaphor you're putting down. So I'm gonna try and paint you a picture of my January. So
yes, please.
Let's say Christmas to New Year's Eve is like the cover of the book. You know, it's not the first page. It's literally just the book. You know, don't judge a book by its cover and all that. And then January is the first page. So Christmas to New Year's, I'm looking at the cover of the book and I'm like, this is my book. Of all the books that came before, nothing will compare to this book. I've got all these like decisions that I've made, these big decisions. I'm like, and I've talked about this more personally off air to you, but like I was like, there's mistakes I've been making, not huge mistakes. I haven't ruined anyone's life, I hope, but like, this is gonna be my year. It's the year I'm getting married. It's the year that I'm going to do all this stuff and I'm going to get everything together. It's the first full year that I'm not in like full-time education. So, you know, I guess technically I'm an adult now. so I was like, this is my year. So that was the cover of the book. It looked amazing. There was dragons and everything on it. And then
super dope.
Sometime between seeing the cover and peeling it to the first page, I got real sick. I got ill. And then I looked at the first page and I threw up all over the first page. So New Year's Eve, I woke up and I have a New Year's Eve party every year. I love it. It's just an excuse to see all your friends and play games and stuff.
Yeah.
I woke up and my first thought was, it's New Year's Eve. I'm so excited. And then I sat up and I was like, I'm not going to make it to the New Year. I was so deathly ill. I was just like the type of ill where you just like crawl everywhere. You don't walk for days. You just crawl because you dared not stand up to see what comes out of your mouth. So I powered through it. Like I had people over for New Year's, but it was the quietest party you've ever seen. Like the music was on like 5, and everyone was like every time they were like telling a joke, I would laugh, and they'd go, "Stop making me laugh."
Oh.
And then the first couple of days of January, I was just ill. I was just in bed. Like I was lucky because like only the last day of being ill was it was my first day back in work, and I called in sick for that day, so I didn't miss much work, so it didn't affect my paycheck, thankfully. But like it affected my whole mood because before that I was so excited, and like I kind of, after I recovered from the illness, it took me a while to recover just from the just dash of hopes, you know. Like when you
your mental recovery was a little long.
Yeah, so like I've never I've never had to, touch wood, like suffer with anything like depression or anything, and I know people who are really close to me who have had that, and I've talked to them. It's horrible. So I wouldn't go that far, but I was definitely just like I was in a haze for like the first 2 weeks of January, and I was trying my best to get back into that mood. But like even when I got happy again, even when I was like, oh, I'm excited, I still wasn't at that level I was before. So I almost felt like I was letting myself down, you know. So it's been a weird...
maybe it's like let me, something near and dear to both of our hearts. I think.
Okay.
It's like you're watching a really good anime that you know gets good, but
Yeah.
you gotta get through the first like season for it to really start going.
Oh my god, a season. Jeez.
Or
It's
at first, I was gonna go with the Kingdom Hearts 2 metaphor.
okay, but I've not played that game.
The Kingdom Hearts, see, that was the problem because
Mm.
like the Roxas stuff, everyone says is the worst thing. It's like the tutorial level, but it's like 8 hours long. But then once you get into that, it's like the greatest game in the world.
Yeah.
So it's like you know it's gonna get good, but you know you have to trod through.
Yeah. So I feel like, especially this week, I've been very much on the I'm on the way out of the haze. I think I entered this week kind of being like, I got it because I made a promise to John like a couple of weeks ago where I was just like, we're gonna talk more. Just like I take so many things for granted, especially when they're like hard to do. I'm not that the podcast is hard to do, but it's just hard to sync up times, like and to
Yeah.
get to a point where we can both talk. And I was just like, I want to just make the effort. I just want to make more. And even if it doesn't come together, even if we didn't podcast, at least just making the effort and talking to each other and being like, hey, how's it going? Do you want to podcast and stuff?
Yeah.
That's even enough because it just shows that I'm not just sitting on the couch just going, oh, I could do something today, but, and I'm sure a lot of people have felt like this.
Yeah,
but,
I feel like this is 2018 is the year of trying.
yeah, trying. And
Year of trying new things. I'm trying to write again. It's weird.
yeah, I love the if anyone is ever stuck for writing, right, and don't be ashamed of it, because I think it's the best technique. Use John's technique, where it's like, I really want to get back into writing, but also fan fiction is so alluring. So just put those two things together.
Yeah, exactly. And I've literally like my Tumblr has started just turning into weird fan fiction things, which is honestly like kind of rewarding in a weird way.
Yeah.
Because like how Tumblr's laid out is that like it's just like when you're doing a text post, it's just one long thing. So like I get to a point where I'm like, I don't have to care about like, oh, how many pages is this or whatever.
Yeah.
I just look at it and go, all right, that's an easily digestible chunk of paragraph. I'm going to post that. There we go. Bam.
Yeah. Not that I think anyone would listen to this type of podcast and look down on fan fiction, but like, if just in case there are people that are just confused about it or anything, I think it's interesting because it's like it's two things, right? First of all, there's the serialization, which you talked about, where it's just like, hey, that's digestible. I'm just going to post this chapter, as opposed to writing a whole long, book or something. And you've done that in the past. I think the cool thing about fan fiction is like Dickens did that. Like Dickens would just do his books a chapter at a time and publish them in magazines. And it's only after the fact that we collected them into a book and went, oh, this is Great Expectations, But the cool thing about like chapters is just like a TV show, but in written form. And I like the idea of like cliffhangers and like I read a lot of fan fiction that they take advantage of that because they know they only do like one a week or one every 2 weeks. So the last line will always be like, and then, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
So I enjoy that, just like I enjoy a cliffhanger in a TV show if it's not like mean.
Yeah,
like,
or if it's not like like Oliver Queen's dead.
Yeah, at CW they do good cliffhangers except for when the season is ending.
Shots fired.
I think when a season is ending, you shouldn't do such a massive cliffhanger where people have to wait 9 months.
Yeah, no, it's a little ridiculous.
But another thing about fanfiction as well is like it's interesting because people go, oh, you're writing other people's characters, but it's like when you want to be a comic book writer, that's all you're doing. like our favorite comic books about Batman and Superman and Flash, they're all just fan fiction that people paid to see.
Seriously.
So it's
and that's like
it's interesting.
I don't know, and it's very like, especially when you're in certain, because a lot of times like headcanon and stuff, like for a while it took me a while, not for a while, it took me a while to get to the point where getting upset about like what the current continuity is.
Yeah.
And whatever, like in comic books or in media or whatever, like, oh man, why is why is Superman not with Lois or whatever, which they are. But, but then, like, it took me a while to just kind of realize, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. They're just ideas, like, in your head. So just, like, I don't know, if that's the way you want to see them, just see them that way.
Yeah, and it's something that I think Um, you, I still struggle with it sometimes. I'm definitely mellowed out on it. Like, I won't get so much angry about it now, but I still do catch myself being disappointed, if you know what I mean. And then I
Yeah.
have to kind of convince myself. I'm like, well, you're not the right. Just appreciate it for what it is, you know. Like I got that, and thousands of other people got it. I didn't get it in an angry way, like a lot of people did. But with the oh, hello, Chloe. By the way, it's nice to see you.
Yes, it is.
She's very upset about
It's
the
about
Last Jedi.
bedtime. It is about bedtime, and she is not happy about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be happy. You know, if I still had a bedtime, I wouldn't be able to podcast with you. But yeah, I had that with The Last Jedi recently, where like I really, the first time I watched it, I just it was just like not the way the characters, not the way the characters didn't go the way I wanted them to go, and that's not a real criticism with anything like a movie or anything like that. That's not, you shouldn't criticize it for not
Yeah.
going the way you want. If anything, if it goes the way you want exactly, that's kind of boring. Like that's not surprising at all. But it is interesting.
Yeah,
that
I
you have
like.
to kind of convince yourself. You have to go, no, that's not a real criticism. I can't get mad at the thing for not doing the exact thing I wanted. But there is a point where you go, well, if I don't like it, then it doesn't have to be. You know, it's just art. It's just made up for my pleasure. If it's not
Yeah.
the thing I want, then it doesn't. Like there are a lot of animes. Animes are famous for ending so disappointingly. Like where they build
Yeah,
to like a
seriously.
certain conclusion, and they go, nah, you don't get it.
And that's the thing is like, oh, especially like Last Jedi, or even going back, where like Days of Future Past,
Yeah,
where my criticism is like that was an easy story decision.
yeah.
You know, of like I hate that you guys made that choice. It was the easy choice, and I know why you did it, but I didn't like it, and that's
Yeah.
what's annoying. You're like, not to be all like when you're a writer or whatever, but when you're like when you like to think that you're like know better than the people making it sometimes, especially as fans, we do that a lot where we think we know better
Yeah.
than whoever's in charge of it. And sometimes it's like, okay, barring that, even if you didn't agree with the decision,
Yeah.
I mean, it still made sense within the context of the story, and it still was a good, probably like choice for them to make. But like that's one of my main criticisms a lot recently. It's just me going, oh, but like that's not where I wanted to take it. But it's like, well, I'm not making it, so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how I want to take it.
I think what I've tried to say to myself, I talk a lot about this with my friend Reese. Like, what I've tried to start saying to myself is, okay, I didn't like it, but was it executed well?
Yeah, exactly.
Like The Last Jedi, the second time I went to see it, I enjoyed it infinitely more. I still have issues with it, but I don't think those issues constitute the movie being bad. I don't think it's a bad film. I think it's a good film. It just wasn't the film I wanted, and still isn't the film I wanted it to be, which is fine. And like, it's not.
Yeah.
It's partly my fault for being so excited for a film that wasn't out for 2 years.
Those trailers just, oh my gosh.
It wasn't just that,
That was
though.
so
It
bad.
was just
I
like,
haven't seen it the second time,
yeah,
and a lot of people who didn't like it, like, I mean, to be honest, I didn't love it.
yeah.
I didn't love the movie, but said that the second viewing is a lot better because those expectations are gone. You know what's going to happen, and so you can just kind of enjoy what they're doing,
And I think it comes
which
down to exactly.
is understandable.
Yeah, I think it comes back. That what you just said comes back to what we were talking about, where it's the idea of of looking at it from a standpoint of, is it executed well? So, like for me, the first time I watched it, I was like, are they going to make the choices I wanted to make? The answer was no, except for a couple. You know? The answer was no, they didn't make the choices I wanted to make. So the first time I didn't enjoy it, right? The second time I went to watch it, I knew the choices they're going to make, so I had no like expectations or desires from the movie. I just wanted to watch it. And then when you're watching it for a second time, when you already know what's going to happen, the only thing you can watch is how is it executed, and you start to see the little bits that you go, okay, they made these choices. I can't do anything about that. But then how did they get these choices to be made? You know, how did they do this? And you start appreciating the movie. So I think if you take away the choices that they make, a lot of that movie is a lot better. I still, I like saying this, and this is a bit too immature, but like I like saying that like we didn't need a comedic Star Wars Guardians of the Galaxy was already that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, Guardians of the Galaxy is the comedy version of Star Wars, and then all of a sudden Star Wars was like, well, we need to be a comedy version of Star Wars as well. So there
Yeah.
are still issues I didn't like about it. I'm just going to quickly mention this because I'm not going to rattle them off because I did like the movie the second time. But like, I still
Yeah.
don't understand why she doesn't tell Poe the thing. I don't want to spoil it, but like someone
Oh.
withholds information from Poe, and it ruins the whole plot of the movie. But like,
That was frustrating. I thought Poe's character arc was probably one of the best in the movie
yeah,
of where he ends up. I might not 100% agree with how they got there,
that was
but
that was the opposite. That was the interesting thing where they did make a decision that I liked, but it was executed
the execution
poorly.
isn't great. Yeah. And that's where it's like, all right, just taking the pieces and looking at the whole and all this like story structure stuff that you probably learned in your college class or whatever.
You give me too much credit. But that's the thing.
I don't have enough credits. That's the problem.
That's the thing. I think I think you do that too much with me, and I'd recommend anyone who finds themselves in a situation where they're angry with something, and they find themselves in an argument with someone who did like the thing, and if you're doing this and they're giving you good points, and you're going, yeah, but I didn't like that they did that. Maybe you need to look at yourself. Like maybe you need to go.
Maybe that's one of those times where I've talked to someone. I've been like, look, I get it, just not for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just not. It's like Watchmen. Watchmen is something that I understand from a fundamental composition and everything is a great story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for me though.
Yeah, absolutely. I see what you're saying. I have.
It's one of those things where it's like it's just not my taste. I get that it's good and I understand why it's important and all of the historical and like it is made impeccably well but it's just not for me.
Yeah, I think
and that's okay.
You're doing a very good like foreshadow right now. Talking about plot devices, you're doing a very good foreshadow for what your topic is going to be.
I try my best.
Speaking of that, should we move on to what our current favorites are?
Yes. I feel like I started off first with the how are you doing, so you start first with this section.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, friend. So I got a couple things on the go right now. I'm in one of those phases where I'm trying to power through my fogginess by ingesting as much media as possible. But I wanted to pick one that was a bit more relevant, and that I do have my head wrapped around for a second, because I'm going to first mention the one that I don't have my head wrapped around, which is I'm watching anime for the first time in 6 months, and stupidly the first anime I decided to watch was Devilman Crybaby, which
the internet has been aflame about this show, and I have lost my Netflix password, so I haven't watched it yet.
Oh my god. Okay, well,
can you top line explain Devilman Crybaby for me?
No.
Just top line it.
No, I can't. I'll explain it without mentioning the plot, because that's the only way I can do it, dude. Number one, this is the first thing you need to know: don't watch the anime. Number two, if you're gonna watch the anime, be prepared to watch it in a way, and I'm not overhyping this because nothing I can say will prepare you for this anime. It's not good in a way that is like I'm enjoying myself when I watch it. It's good in a way that I'm like, okay, there is no way they can do anything crazier than what they just did in that last scene. Oh wait, they just did. I can't pay attention to the plot, the animation. It took me till episode 9 to go, wow, the soundtrack's really good, because you are so distracted by everything that is happening on screen. I watched the first episode. A friend came over and he was like, I'm watching this anime, right? Now, for those of you that know Jack Thomas, he's involved in a couple other things I did. He came over to record a series we do called Let's Play Legend of Korra. And after we finished it, he was like, do you watch this anime I've been watching? I need someone to process it with. So I'm like, okay. So he chucks on the first episode, and he has a first-hand account of my utter disbelief. And there were points in the first episode where, like, I almost spilt my drink. It's so bizarre. It's crazy. The way I would describe it is like if you're watching, like, you're too far away to save it. I just want to say that because I don't want people to feel bad. If you're watching a car crash, right, can't do anything about it, and you go, oh, this is terrible, what the hell? And then that car spins into a bus, and you go, oh, what? It can't getting any worse than that? And then the bus spins into a plane, and that plane flies away and crashes into a train. It's like, what are you doing? Why do you make this?
Oh my
And like
God.
halfway through the episode, he goes, "Oh yeah, this is a remake of an '80s anime." I go, what is happening? So I can't explain the plot. If you do want to watch it, if you do get your Netflix password back, I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think it's something that you'd enjoy. I don't think it's something that I would enjoy. It's just after you watch the first episode, it's impossible not to finish it because you keep going, where are they going to go? It's incredibly graphic. It's incredibly violent, gratuitous. The one thing I say, it doesn't seem to swear a lot. They have so much of everything else, but they don't really swear that much. But it's very do you know Berserk, the anime or the manga?
Yeah.
Visually, it's very Berserk. Apparently, the original Berserk manga was inspired by the original Devilman anime, which this is a remake of. So there's a lot of uber violent, uber over the top, like disgusting demon stuff.
So, just from that description,
okay.
It's like not my taste.
Yes,
not my taste.
I don't know every anime that you enjoy, but from what I know, I wouldn't recommend it. The one time I would go, "Oh, John, watch this anime," is if me and you were hanging out, and I was like, "I gotta see what your reaction is." That's the only time I would ever make you watch this anime, is if we were in person and I could watch you experience it. I went on way too long about that.
Oh,
that's not my fave. That's just something that I had to grapple with and get out to you mainly, because
I'm glad I was able to talk to someone about it, because I've seen all the reactions to it.
Yeah.
Of all these varying degrees of oh my God, what? And I'm just like, what is this thing that everyone seems to be talking about?
When we're not recording, maybe sometime, I don't know, at some point, I'll describe the plot to you, and it'll just reinforce the fact that you don't want to watch this anime. But
yeah.
But I just wanted to talk to someone about it, because the only other person I know who could have talked to it has already seen it and is right now distraught. so I'm going to move quickly on, and I'm just going to say a little bit about my current fave, because I took up way too much time talking about that. Although this is our podcast, we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, we can do whatever we want. We can go 5 hours if we want. Who cares?
Let's go 5 hours. I'll never sleep. I've been playing the free game for this month for the PSN, which was the Batman Telltale game.
Ooh.
Now, Telltale's a company that I've always been interested in, but I've never played one of their games properly. I've played episode 1 of Borderlands. I've played episode 1 of The Wolf Among Us, I think, back in the day.
Yeah.
And I know that they have a varying reputation of being great to being annoying, if you know what I mean, depending on the game, because they make so many these choice-based games, and they're all in the same engine, that they get stretched thin sometimes. So some of them, they don't have the best writing, they don't have the best mechanics, blah blah blah. But I'm very much enjoying the Batman one, because I think Batman as a character, and more accurately, Batman and Bruce Wayne as characters, they really fit this kind of system of a game that isn't really making you you don't get to punch a guy. You press square and then Batman will punch the guy, but it'll tell you to press square before he punches it. So that's not really the game. The game is the choices you make, and you're basically defining what you believe is Batman's philosophy. And as a writer, and as someone who wants to write comic books and would be over the moon to one day write a Batman comic book, it's so interesting, because everyone who reads comics, everyone who reads Batman has their version of Batman. They go, "This is what I would do with Batman. This is."
So that would be my one question, I guess. Is it in any sort of continuity, or is it its own complete thing?
So here's where I wanted to really talk to you specifically about it, because we talk a lot about continuity, and I like this. It is very clear that this game is written by people who are Batman fans, who know a lot of the continuities, who know a lot of the different Batmans and all the different versions of the villains. But it's also written by people that had their own take and wanted to create a continuity in which you could have these iconic villains and these iconic moments, but in a new, interesting way. And also, they want you to also affect the continuity. So you can make decisions in the game that are very similar to how it plays out in the comics, but you can also do the opposite. So it is very much its own continuity, and I think the way they really hit it that home is the first season. So the first, I guess, game, because there's a sequel that I'm playing now, but the first game has got a villain who is a completely unique villain, completely made up for the game, a completely new villain, and the villain is very interesting. I think is a good addition. I personally would bring them into the comics continuity if it was up to me, because I think they're a very interesting villain. But that kind of is them, I think, making a statement that this isn't in the regular Batman continuity. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's definitely similarities. So, for example, Penguin is in it. I can spoil this, I think, because this is very early on in the game. Penguin is in it, but he's like Bruce Wayne's age. So you're like, oh, that's interesting. That's a new change to the Penguin character. But you find out a lot about Penguin's parents. And Penguin's father is pretty much Penguin from the comics. He's got the monocle. He's an old guy. He's got the top hat. He's like he's a rich guy. He owns a bunch of land and stuff. So they have this interesting dynamic where Penguin exists from the comics, but he's his father. And the new Penguin, the Penguin that you interact with, is this kind of younger, more fierce kind of like I guess. What's that fucking word for like?
Is it?
We don't get
so like the guy from Gotham.
Yeah, he's similar to the guy from Gotham, but less like slimy. He's more. There's a word. He's even a Batman villain. The word is used for a Batman villain. It's a anarchy. Oh my god, it took me so long. He's more of an Anarchy type character. So if you know Anarchy from the Batman comics or from the Batman games, he's kind of like Penguin merged with Anarchy, which I like. And there's a lot of Batman villains that already exist in the world. So there's a lot of them, you witness their origins. Like Harvey Dent is in the game, and he's just Harvey Dent right now. When you start the game, he's just Harvey Dent. He's the district attorney. He's a great guy. He's your friend. But depending on what you do, I'm not going to spoil it, but everyone knows who Harvey Dent is. But you can take steps to prevent it or change it, because it's all your game. So you are very much dropped into a new Batman continuity, but how it moves and how it shapes is completely up to the decisions you make. And one of the things that I really want
that would be the one worry I would have with those games.
Okay.
Is making it feel like your choices actually matter.
Yeah.
Because I had played The Wolf Among Us.
Yeah.
And, like, in the beginning, it's based off the Fables universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in the beginning, it's like, oh, no, like, I mean, the first season's been out for a long time, for years, since, like, 2013. So, in the beginning, you're like, oh, no, Snow White's dead. But if you read the comics, and this is a prequel to the comics, you know she's not dead. So it's like, all right, well, this obviously doesn't. So it was this weird thing of, like, I didn't really feel like I was actually affecting any change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that...
So that's what excites me, I guess, about the Batman one, is that sounds like you are actually making your own universe, in a way.
And I think that was a thing that the Game of Thrones one suffered with a lot as well. I have not watched Game of Thrones, and I haven't played the Telltale game either, but I know from a lot of friends that they said the worst decision they made with the Game of Thrones one is saying that it would line up with the TV show, because like you're like, okay, well, then it doesn't matter, because anything I do in the Game of Thrones game, it still has to line up with the TV show. So the choices I make are really, they don't mean anything. But like, there's a choice that you make pretty early on in the first game. It's in episode 1. If you know these games, they're always divided up into these 5 episodes. So it's like 5 episodes is a game. In episode 1, at the end of episode 1, you make a pretty big Batman decision that pretty much defines a part of who Batman is for the rest of the game, and characters will treat you completely differently. I don't think it's a big spoiler, so I'm going to say it, if that's okay, John, with you. But just in case you do want to play these games completely fresh, I'm just warning you, skip ahead a little bit. So at the beginning of the game, the first episode, the last thing you do in the first episode is you catch Carmine Falcone. So you're like, oh shit, it's Carmine Falcone, I know this guy, he's in a bunch of comics, fucking, he's the dude, he's the crime boss.
Yeah.
You catch him, and there's pretty much no decision. You can only catch him. It doesn't matter what decisions you make in the game, you're always going to catch him, because you're Batman. But then I'm like, okay, well, that's cool, but like, I was always going to catch him. There's no way that he was going to get away. But then it's like, okay, well, do you want to hand Carmine Falcone over to the police like Batman would, or do you want to drop him off the side of the building? And you're like, what? And I was like, what? And I was like, save him? Because this is the Batman I want to know. I want to be the Batman that is, is always on the right side of the law and stuff and works with Jim Gordon. So I'm like, of course, save him. And then I start thinking, I'm like, what if I dropped him? And then in all the next episodes, Jim is like, I really appreciate that you work with us. And it opens up all these sidelines that I'm like, if I dropped him, there is no way that this Jim Gordon would have worked with me. But what's an interesting thing is because you're both Jim and... Sorry, you don't play as Jim. If you're both Batman and Bruce, it depends on who you are when you make a decision. You can have a completely different relationship. So, like, you can be really close to Jim with Batman like I am. Like, through my playthrough, I'm always siding with Jim because I love Jim as a character in the comics, and he's so good in the game as well. Like, they nail... Like,
how are you not going to side with Jim Gordon?
Exactly.
I mean, come on.
So I'm really siding with Jim, and I'm trying to, make that relationship good. But as Bruce, I'm trying to deal with other things, and sometimes Jim will get in the way. So Bruce and Jim have an awkward relationship, whereas Batman and Jim are very close friends. So it opens up this whole avenue where you're like, you can be a bad Batman, like a really ruthless Batman, and be a really philanthropic Bruce Wayne, and or you can be the opposite. You can be, the playboy arsehole while also being a really good Batman. And when the game expands, again, I'm not going to talk about this too much because I'm getting into spoilers otherwise, but when the game starts expanding and punishing you or rewarding you for your choices, you really start going, oh man, I'm glad that you can't go back, but I really wish I didn't make that choice. And it's quite a good experience. I think it's silly that they took that long to get to Batman, but I'm glad that they did because he's just fits the mold so well.
Well, I think they've had opportunities to fail with this system and to really succeed, so they could take kind of what they've learned and make really the best version of this game.
I think so, and I think I got to give credit to the writers as well, because I think that all the games have different writers, and the ones at Batman, they really know their comics. They do stuff where you go, oh, that's when you're watching something that's an adaptation, you go, that's not how it happens in the comics, but there's a little thing there to go, but we still acknowledge how it happens in the comics,
Yeah.
Like there's a little Easter egg that goes, like the Penguin thing, where they completely change Penguin's character, but they still have the dad to go, we're still respecting what came before,
Yeah, exactly.
Which is interesting. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've been having a blast, and I'd like to know if you manage to get that. I don't know if you've got PS Plus, but if you manage to get that at some point and play it, I'd really like to know what your perspective is and what choices you made.
That's the problem is I'm so bad at making bad choices in those games. Like, because I always make the good choice, like the good guy choice, I guess. But I hate it when the game makes it hard for me to do that. Because then I'm like, I want to be a good person, but like, it's not the smart choice.
I think the perfect Telltale games really go, it's not the good and the bad choice. It's the you got to please someone. You got to piss someone off to please someone, and you decide who you're willing to piss off and who you're willing to please. And in my case, it's usually I'm willing to piss off anyone to please Jim Gordon. So what have you been...
That's a good way to live life.
Yeah, it is. What have you been up to, friend? What have you been watching, reading, and experiencing?
So my one... So I'm gonna copy you. I'm gonna do one that's not really current fave, but just something I gotta get off the chest, and then my current fave. So a while back ago, this is like a couple months ago probably, I was watching Re:Zero: Starting Life in Another World.
That sounds like an anime if I've ever heard one.
It is an anime, and it's honestly like I haven't caught up with it yet.
Okay.
But you should watch the show.
Oh,
it's honestly, it has one of the most human and emotional moments I've probably seen in an anime ever.
Oh wow. Okay, this is
the
opposite
story
of my recommendation.
Yeah, exactly. So you have this basically you have a guy who gets transported into an RPG world. That's a big story thing in anime.
Yes.
These last couple of years, a lot of animes have been doing this.
I can think of one to blame.
Yeah, yeah, right. We're not going to talk about that. But and then he dies. He gets like murdered in an alleyway, whatever, and then he starts back over at a certain point.
Oh, so there's like save
points. He has like, yeah, exactly. So he has a respawn ability. So he keeps all the memories, just like like a video game player would, of his time. but all the characters around him don't.
Oh, and they're all players as well, or are they AI?
No, it's we don't know if it's a video game or I think it's just a magic world. Like he just got
Oh, I
transferred
see.
to reality. But he has his special power is respawn basically.
Oh, interesting.
He calls it like starting from death or starting from zero or something like that, but
That's so anime.
and he's like he's this super wimpy kind of like nobody, so he's not really like really strong or anything. So
Okay.
his main way to get through situations is just constantly dying and trying to figure out like he keeps on acting differently but the interesting thing about it is like his relationships with people. Because
Okay.
he might get really, really close to somebody and they tell him something that's really personal and then he dies.
Okay.
And then he tries to recreate like that relation.
Oh man.
And it doesn't go the same way. And it breaks your heart sometimes because there are certain characters that you're like, no, but they really they finally started like connecting and like meeting and like getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And then he dies again and then they go back to hating him.
Oh, that's interesting.
And
That's
there's
such a
this,
good premise.
yeah, really good. The deaths are really brutal and violent because it's like he almost has like PTSD sometimes because it's like he always like goes to check himself from like after he dies.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like this like you really feel for him even though he's like your classic like kind of like semi-annoying anime protagonist. Like the the kind of like always about the girls and the skirts and all this stuff and like that dumb stuff
Wow.
that always
I was
turns
thinking
me
I was thinking more like a Naruto character, but you're talking like more modern. Like that's a bit of a more modern thing. I
not
think.
super lewd, like he's not super like annoying, but it's more so he's just like, oh, Emilia-san, like I love you, like
Yeah.
how about we go on a date? Like that annoying guy who just that anime.
Because that is it's quite like in the 90s they were all like kind of Naruto-y, where they were all just like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking do you, this is believe it, I'm gonna. And then there was a shift towards like almost making the main hero like a bit of an aloof, like maybe it was Soul. Like he wasn't really pervy, but Soul was like the first protagonist who's kind of like aloof and always like, oh yeah,
See, like I kind of feel like Tenchi Muyo,
Which
but
one is he
Tenchi
from?
was meant to be. I think that there was like Tenchi and all these different like versions of the Tenchi show, but that
Okay.
show was kind of meant to be kind of harem-y, I think though.
I see, yeah.
Because that was like an old '90s anime.
Yeah, I see what you're saying now.
But I think that one was meant to be kind of like a harem-y of like, oh, this guy and there's all these like beautiful women around him who are like aliens or whatever dumb stuff. But so the moment I want to talk to you,
one of them's his friend from childhood.
yeah, exactly. So the moment I want to talk about is he he's living in this mansion, whatever.
Yeah.
With this because this girl he like saves from early on invites him over, whatever, and he keeps on dying.
Or in the
like
mansion?
once he gets there. Yeah,
okay.
basically like we get past the first save point. Like I'm calling them save points. They don't really talk about like how the powers and all that stuff work yet.
Yeah.
But so he gets past basically the first respawn area and gets into the second one, which is like the mansion.
Okay.
And then he keeps on dying and dying. And so one day he's like, all right, I'm going to do everything right. I'm going to make everyone happy. I'm just going to work. So he's working like incredibly hard and everyone's like kind of looking at him like, because he's working as like a butler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really weird. But and so the main girl like takes him into the one of the rooms. She's like, come over here. Like, just come over here. He's like, what? No, I gotta go do this. She's like, just, and she like lays down, whatever, and she like puts his head on her lap, whatever.
Okay.
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic scene. And then he just starts like bawling.
Oh man. Yeah.
And crying, talking about how he's been trying and trying and trying so hard to do the right thing and to make everything perfect, and he keeps on failing. And she like doesn't fully obviously understand what he's talking about.
Yeah.
It's like this really beautiful like human moment of like this dude who like, yeah, if you're in a weird situation where you just keep on dying, you get like, this is after 5 or 6 separate times being horribly murdered over and over and over again. He's just like, it's just like broken him down. And it was like one of those moments where I'm like, wow, like I really feel for these people and this person. And like, I don't know, it's not something I'm used to. Like, I'm used to like getting emotional with stuff, but that was like, that one really hit home.
Yeah, I can see why you saw that, and because there's very rarely a moment like that in in anything. I don't think even in anime is a bit too narrow. I think there's not really a moment in that in a lot of things. And some of my favorite moments in cinema and anime and TV shows are those where like it's not necessarily a character who knows what's happening. You know, it's a bit less effective when the other character, so the girl character in this situation, when they if they fully understand the situation, it's a bit more you can see it coming. But when there's a character who's just so empathetic that they don't know what's going on, but they can tell that this person is like troubled, and they get them to open up, and they get them to. It's kind of a shock, and I think as a viewer, the pleasure you gain from it is in the sense of like we've all kind of been there, you know, we've all kind of wanted that at some point of someone who
where you have something going on, but not everyone around you like knows what's going on, and someone just kind of takes you to the side and is like, "Hey, look, I don't know what's going on, but like you just need someone to talk to or someone to vent at or whatever."
Absolutely, it's like the moment from the famous moment from Good Will Hunting, like where he's like, "It's not your fault." You know, he just keeps saying it again and again. And Matt Damon at the beginning is like shrugging it off, and then all of a sudden he goes from that to bawling and screaming because it's like you've just I think as humans we want people to understand us, but we don't want to open up. So it's like a double-edged sword. So when you get someone who can understand you without knowing exactly what's going on, and I think those you've just sold the ticket. I know you don't have to buy a ticket to an anime, but you understand what I'm saying. Like, just explain.
Yeah, I really think you should at least get to that part, or get through the second point. That's what I did. I got through like the second I call it respawn point because they don't really have names or stuff. It's just after the mansion level.
Yeah,
I got through that point, and I haven't continued just because life has been going on. But I really want to get back to it.
You gotta get some
I love how we said we weren't going to get too. We were never going to get super deep on this podcast. We just keep on doing it. Yeah, and then my actual favorite thing, go quickly, is Persona 5.
Oh my god. I should have known.
That game is amazing. I'm completely in love with it. I've clocked in, I think about 60 hours or something. So like, I'm in love with that game. This is one of the few games that I'm going to New Game Plus.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
Because I know so they're called confidants. They're kind of like side characters that have their own stories that you hang out with and basically boost up stats.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
I want to max all of them out. I haven't yet, and it's going to be literally impossible for me to do it during this play session. However, New Game Plus, I keep all my stats.
Oh, wow. Okay, fair enough. I guess.
So then I could just max out whatever ones in this one, New Game Plus, max out the rest. Because that's what, I had this tweet of nothing gives me more anxiety than trying to figure out what to do with my day in Persona 5. Because you have after school and evening.
Yeah.
And you can only hang out, usually, technically, with one person during each segment.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and it's a calendar, year. How the game goes, throughout a year.
Yeah.
So classic each day, you're like, all right, 3 people texted me. All right, what am I going to do? Am I going to hang out with the gun store owner? Am I going to hang out with the one of my party members or another one of my party members? All right, well, let's see. I'm already this far with this person. And then sometimes you go and hang out with someone, and they're like, oh, well, you're not going to gain any levels today. So do you still want to hang out with them? And you're like, do I? Some days it's easy because you have nothing else to do. Yeah, but then on days when you do have things to do, it's like, I'm sorry, Anne, I'm going to go hang out with Makoto because Makoto is going to level up if I do this. So, I'll talk to you later.
Meanwhile, it's sends a message, Anne hates you now.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it doesn't do that. But one annoying thing is that sometimes you get to a point where, I have a new party member. I mean, she's not new at this point, but she was the last party member to be introduced. Yeah. And I wanted to hang out with her, but one of my personal stats isn't high enough to do things with her.
Oh, what?
So I'm like, well, great. I just got this party member, and my proficiency is not maxed out, so I can't help her with her flowers.
Oh, God. It's so great. It makes me think of when I play Mass Effect games, and I'm just like, everyone needs to be happy. I need to... Everything... I haven't got the... I get it less so in, the Telltale games, because it guides you through the story, where, you meet this person because they approach you, or you meet this person because you need to go see them, and then you get to make choices there. But the games like Mass Effect and like Persona, where it's just you choose who you're going to give time to, and you only have a certain amount of time, you're like, this is too much like real life.
It's so stressful, and it sucks because like, what one gripe I will have with the game
Ooh.
is that every female character you can have a romantic relationship with.
Hold up.
Basically,
Can I just,
everyone in the
can I
game.
just pause you for a second? Is this...
Yeah.
I saw a tweet. I don't know if it was you or if it was someone you retweeted. I think I know where this is going, and I love it. I 100% agree with you.
But you cannot romanticize any of the males,
yeah.
any of the men.
And
It's like there are certain characters where like there is an option to legitimately flirt with them, but it's always laughed off as a joke. My one gripe, because there are certain characters that I'm like, honestly, one of the fan fictions I'm writing is based off Persona 5, and it's
Well, here's the thing.
and spoiler alert, it's a romantic entanglement between one of the male characters and the main character.
You'll have to read it to find out.
It's my best boy.
Well, here's
honestly,
the thing.
he's the best boy in the game.
Here's the thing, right? I want to get your take on this. I have I already mentioned him. I don't know why I'm reintroducing him. Jack Thomas, JT, my friend.
Yeah.
I always say that you and him are the two friends that I want to meet the most, because you two and me would get like we would try force the shit out of this. We would just talk all day. Like, but he is also deep into Persona 5, and he just like it's the game he's playing right now. And there's a character in that. He said that you meet him in the first day. He's like the guy that you hang out with in the first day, and you go to the castle together.
Yeah, your boy.
So that's what I'm saying, right? Everyone who has played this game keeps talking about how frustrated they are they can't romance this guy. Like, Jack was playing it, and he was like, oh, this is clearly going to be my romance option. Like, even before the game it even got going, he was like, this guy's my romance option. And, like, when he found out that you couldn't, he was so annoyed. And, like, I knew you were going to say the same thing. I knew it.
Yeah.
And I have
Mine's
a feeling that if I ever
Yusuke,
played
but
it...
I also understand Ryuji too.
Oh,
though.
okay.
Like, my option's Yusuke, but I understand Ryuji also. Ryuji makes sense. That's his boy.
But yeah, I think that it's so silly, because like it's not even I think it is to an extent an inclusivity thing, but it's not even that. It's a gameplay thing. It's like you're close. It's like having half the levels be locked for the whole game. Like, I'm not even saying it from a point of view of, like, you know, people should be inclusive, and you should be able to, in a game where you choose everything about your character, you should be able to choose their sexuality. But forgetting that, like, it's just from a gameplay point of view, you should open up as many options to people as possible when you're locking half the game.
Especially in a game that's all about, like, making your life choices, and making, like, a decision to your day, and, like...
It's the title of the game. The game's called Persona. It's about your persona. I know it has double meanings and stuff, but that's also one of the meanings. Like, and if your persona likes guys, then you should be able to like guys.
Well, and then the interesting thing is that the entire, like, going meta here, the whole idea behind the game is breaking the chains of society and rebelling against society. So, wouldn't you... like, wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah, it just feels like such an artistic gold mine that they just were like, nah, we're not gonna mine it. Nah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I guess that's why we have fan fiction and fan art, I guess. But, you know.
Yeah.
Wow, we've had a really good theme this episode, I think.
I think it's gonna keep going. I think we're gonna keep the Steam engine rolling if we want to go into.
Yeah, I'm in love with it.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're good. No, yeah, that's all. Persona 5, amazing game of the year.
Persona 5 is one of those games where I've never been into JRPGs or I don't want to say Japanese games, because I love Metal Gear Solid. It's like my favorite game of all time.
Yeah.
But you know, like the anime games, I guess. Like, I love anime, but I've never really been into an anime game. I think the closest I got was like fighting games that are based on animes and stuff. But I think Persona is the first. Well, Ni no Kuni was going to be the first one. I bought Ni no Kuni being like, I love Studio Ghibli. I'm going to play Ni no Kuni, and I just couldn't get into it. It was just, it's not for me. I'm not a turn-based guy. But then I was like, I might be willing to put up with it for Persona, because everyone tells me how great it is.
If anything, I would because Persona 5 is going to have an anime.
Oh wow. Okay.
I would just wait for the anime and watch it, and then decide if afterwards if you want to live in that world and like do that whole thing.
But I'm not sure I want the anime to decide my character for me. You know?
That is the interesting thing. Well, that's the interesting thing is the protagonist doesn't have a name. Usually in these games, you know, they don't.
Yeah.
In the manga, his name's Akira.
Oh wow.
In the anime, his name is going to be Ren.
Oh,
So it's interesting that the manga and the anime are naming the characters differently.
I like that.
Which has been funny for people's Tumblr posts because people are like Ren / Akira, the protagonist.
I think that's a good idea though, because it's saying like the manga and the anime are just two different playthroughs, just like everyone else's playthroughs.
Yeah.
They're just different interpretations of the character.
You can argue about waifus and whatever you want. Everything is canon.
Yeah, I respect that actually. I respect that they're being like, you know, like I hate people who go like I'm just relating it to Mass Effect because it's a similar game that I think that people can understand, you know, why I'm comparing the two hopefully. But like with Mass Effect, a lot of the games they go, yeah, but what's the true ending? I'm like, that's not the point. Like you don't. The point isn't the true ending. It's that everyone has their own ending, and none of them are the true ending. It's all fan fiction. You know, the game is fan.
The true ending was with us all along.
It was in your heart. So I think we should. I think I'm rolling the topic. I like it. So I'm gonna act like I completely made this up on the spot when we both know that I didn't. I'm going to talk about my topic for this podcast. My topic for this podcast is thematic, I hope. I like this idea that we always try to squeeze a theme into these episodes.
Yeah, we don't usually mean to. Sometimes we'll try to get our topics along the same idea, you know, because it's weird if one topic's about movies and the other topic's about sports. Like that's doesn't really
I can't wait for the day we talk about sports.
Oh, wrestling. The one true sport.
Did you see the game? Anyway, I want to talk about video games, as we have been talking about. And I want to talk about what character would you put that you think deserves a video game that doesn't already have one, or maybe has one but it's not a video game that you think they deserve. And how would you do it? That's the interesting part, I think, of the question. It's not just you know, like Batman could be an answer, even though he has a million video games. I think if you don't believe that Batman's gotten his video game yet, you can go, well, this is my idea for it. And I honestly think Batman got the perfect Batman video game in Arkham City, and then they did it again with Batman Telltale. So I'm not going to choose Batman. So do you want to go first, or would it be kind of me to explain mine first?
Either I've actually got mine. I feel pretty good about mine.
I'm very excited for yours because you said you struggled with it and then you got it, and that's always an interesting dilemma. So go ahead. What character do you think deserves a video game?
So mine is interesting because I've not watched this TV show in a couple of years.
Okay.
But it's Supernatural.
Ooh, did not.
I think Supernatural is prime and perfect for a video game. It's saving people, hunting things. You've got an extremely likable cast of characters.
Yeah.
And you already have a rule. The show already has rules for how the world works.
Yeah, definitely.
You just need to take those and put them in a video game. I had two options for a type of video game.
Okay.
One of them is survival horror, Resident Evil.
Ooh.
You're stuck inside of a mansion, insane asylum, whatever. You're low on, equipment and stuff, and you're trying to figure out and investigate what's the monster that's killing things, inside of this area.
So it's like an episode of the show.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And then you can either get kind of like Alien Isolation.
Ooh, okay.
Or Dead Space, to where if you get caught by the monster and you are just in no possible way to escape and you have not fully investigated and gotten everything together, that thing will just destroy you. There's no way you're going to beat it. So you have to investigate, figure out the history behind it, what it is, and then what you need to kill it before going after it.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of like a preparation game. Like the game is the preparation and then killing it is the victory. Yeah. It's like the reward.
Yeah. And then my other option was more of what seems to be kind of what most video games are now. It's you got a giant map. Two brothers get inside the Impala. You drive to a town. You meet, talk to people, find out, hey, there's a monster here, kill it, go back in the Impala, start driving again. Kind of like an open world. You're
Mm.
just driving from town to town, fighting different monsters and things, and collecting different better gear, better whatever. The
Mm.
brothers have great banter with each other. Like as you're driving on the road, you can turn the radio on. Just kind of like Mad Max Assassin's Creed type, where it's like, all right, here's your giant city. Go find quests and different
Yeah.
like monsters and stuff to hunt and murder and just have a good time living with these characters and in this world.
I really like those. However, I hope that I don't feel like the intrusive co-writer that I so often am.
Yes.
But I think there is a way. I think you've hit on something, you just haven't realized it yet. I think there's a way you can do both of those games in one game. Um, have you ever played the game LA Noire?
Yeah. Oh my God.
It is both those games.
Literally could just do LA Noir.
you you would have the open world, like you said, because people would love that. You'd have Sam. Even in LA Noire, you always have a partner. You choose
Yeah.
either Sam or Dean. You jump in the car.
I like the idea of, maybe you can switch back and forth.
Yeah,
And
maybe
each
like
brother
GTA
has like,
type.
yeah. And they have their strengths and weaknesses. Sam's better at this and this and this, and Dean's more like the brawler, and he's better at this and this and whatever.
Yeah, and maybe like depending on who you choose, the conversations and the interviews would go differently. Because obviously, like
Yeah.
Sam is the empathetic person where he's like trying to appeal to them, and he's going to say, "Okay, the monster. Don't worry, he's not going to get you. We'll protect you." Whereas Dean will be like, "Where is it? Show us where it is." And I think that like it would be interesting to have this game where it's an open world, but you jump in the open world with one single investigation, and you have to complete that investigation for the game to progress. So you can drive around the open world and do whatever you want, but there are certain locations that the monster has hit, and there'll be like people there that you need to interview, and there's going to be like things they've left behind. So like obviously in the show, there's a lot of times they'll find an artifact and they'll go, this artifact is relevant, and then they have to drive to the library to go, why is this artifact relevant? And then they look through books and you find out something about
And
the
then
monster.
you can play out the great scenes of them pretending to be. They always use names of like famous rock stars, whatever, to like sneak in the building, and, like
Yeah.
trying to lie your way through places. And
I think it would be interesting, and then you could also incorporate that other idea you had in the first version of the game, of like you can also do it without the investigating. So maybe like early on in the investigation, you get a location, and you can either choose, all right, I'm going to keep investigating, keep supernatural it up with, or you can be a total Dean and just drive straight to the location. And like maybe there's a way you can maybe beat the monster without the information, but it's going to be incredibly hard. And it recommends that you like investigate, because there are episodes of Supernatural, and maybe as the story progresses, it'll get more like this, where the monsters are more personal. Like maybe it could be like, how cool would it be to have throughout the game Castiel keeps coming and helping you. He keeps just helping you out, and then towards the end of the game, like the monster's either got Castiel or it's possessed his body or something. Like do it like the show does it, where it ups the stakes by affecting the people that you care about, the characters that you care about, and then maybe you don't want to investigate. You're like, I don't have time to investigate. I gotta go save Castiel, or something like that. I think that
I'm really surprised that I don't know if there's been like a low budget game, but I'm really surprised that they've not made, to my knowledge at least, some sort of video game based off of Supernatural.
It is. I think that it's an interesting thing making a video game based on another property, because it has so much bad precedent, And I think some people now, they think, well, you either give it to Telltale or you don't give it to anyone, But I think if you give that game to a great developer, they could really do something interesting with it. The best video games, I think, based on other properties, they give them a reason for being a video game. They don't just make it based on the TV show. They give it a reason. And I think something like that, like what you said, where it's more about the choice of the investigation or the fighting, and the you can have all the elements of the show, the things that make the show great, but incorporated into a video game that is ultimately fun to play. Even if you strip away the supernatural, like the idea of making that choice, and I just think that show is such, like you said right at the beginning, it has such a great format, and it has such great rules that are already there in place. You don't have to just follow that. Just follow the format,
Yeah.
follow the rules, and just
It's
have...
almost like The Witcher.
Yeah. I see what you're saying with the preparation.
And also that like The Witcher was already like a series that had like a set characters and a set way of how the world works and how different magical beings interact with each other and how they do stuff, and all they had to do is really take that and give it really put a solid gameplay behind it.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that, oh my god, dude, if CD Projekt Red were like, oh yeah, so next project is going to be a Supernatural video game. Like,
That would be insane.
it
I
would
mean,
be
the show's
bizarre.
been on for 13 seasons. Why not not have a video game?
I mean, I think a lot of people would be like, what? And we'd be like, okay, well, just let me introduce you to a podcast where...
I'd be like, sign my check, please, and send it here. Thank you.
Oh god, gotta send Chloe to college.
So what was your yeah, right? What was your idea that spawned this whole
Ooh, so this is one of those things where I've had the idea for so long that like I had to think about it again, because you know when sometimes you have this idea, you go, this would be great, and then you just sit on it for years, and you always think it's great because it was great at the time. I really had to go back and think about it and go, let's think of the details and think of how it would actually play out. But I think that there's a character who most people love him, if they've heard of him. A lot of people have a weird interpretation of who he is because of the TV show, but I think most people would agree that he's a fun character, which is Green Arrow. I think that Green Arrow is a very fun character, whether you like him through the show, in which he's very much a different person, I think, or whether you like the comic book version of Green Arrow, or probably what most people have been introduced to is the Justice League animated series version of Green Arrow, which I think is probably the ultimate Green Arrow. Like, he encapsulates
really,
the
that
best
is like
of
my
all
favorite version.
best of all the types of characters of Green Arrow. I think that this is less of a deep one than yours. Like, yours kind of gets into what the show's about, whereas mine is just based purely on the idea of this character and this superhero, really, and his kind of like arsenal, not to make a pun. His arsenal, like, he has not just an arsenal of weapons that would be such an interesting game, to deal with arrows, with crossbow arrow, not crossbow, with grappling hook arrows, with boxing glove arrows, with shock arrows, with freeze arrows. These all come into play like in games like Injustice in a small way, but to really open up and see what you could do with a character like that, with all these different gadgets, it would be very similar to like an Arkham type game where Batman slowly he develops his gadgets and you get to do more interesting things, and you can go back to previous bits of the game you've already been, and all of a sudden you can open up new areas because you've got the new arrow. You've got the freeze arrow that you needed to freeze the water that you can get over it because Ollie can't swim apparently. But
Have you heard of a little game called Horizon Zero Dawn?
Oh my god, those developers, if those developers grabbed hold of Green Arrow, because it's not just his arsenal of weapons, but it's also he's got a pretty good rogues gallery. Like, he hasn't got the best, he isn't up there with like Batman and the Flash and Spider-Man, but he's got people who don't like him, and they've all got kind of their own gimmicks. I mean, obviously Merlin is an obvious one because he has the exact same power set. He could be like a character that chases you throughout. Maybe you fight him a couple times throughout the game, and then you have to fight him a last time.
But then you have like Onomatopoeia.
Absolutely, Deathstroke. He'd be in my Green Arrow game. The Deathstroke Ollie relationship is quite interesting because it's very different to the Teen Titans, in which Teen Titans varies from Deathstroke hating the Teen Titans for killing his son, but then also admiring Robin and wanting to take Robin out of his wing. It's kind of a complicated relationship. Whereas with Deathstroke, it's very much like a respect thing. Like, when they first meet in Identity Crisis, like, there's a moment at the end where you get the sense that Deathstroke, like, he sends Ollie a message, and you get the sense that he respects Ollie, but he wants to beat him. It's like this kind of very anime rivalry type thing. And I think you could play on that. You could have him as, like, this guy that maybe at the beginning of the game is really trying to beat you, but then towards the end of the game, your kind of interests line up. And like being back to back with Deathstroke in a Green Arrow game would just be fantastic. But you've also got
it's Goku and Vegeta, you know, like
yeah, absolutely. But I also think like there's potential for like, you know, you've got Arsenal, you've got Speedy, you know, you've got all a plethora of side characters that you could bring in. Wintergreen is obviously a big one that people would really like to see, I think, and you could really build like a nice, you know, open world Star City with enough nooks and crannies. And again, I mentioned Arkham City earlier in this podcast because it was a very big influence on me as a when I played it. I think that it's such a great idea for a comic book game that really lets you play out comic book fantasies. But like, if you've ever played Arkham City, you have the main quest line which takes you to all these different places. But what's almost more interesting is these little hints. You'll just come across something, and like say, for example, in the Green Arrow game, you're doing the main quest, and all of a sudden you see this open window. So you go, "Oh, I can climb up to that." So you grab and hook arrow up, you climb into the window, and then there's just this guy in a terrible, awful superhero costume, just dead on the floor, and he's been shot. And you go, "Why is this guy who looks like he's wearing a Halloween superhero costume dead on the floor?" And you'd investigate, and all of a sudden, slowly. Oh. Sorry, have I interrupted something?
No, you're good.
Oh, I heard something. But then slowly you would like find out that it was Onomatopoeia, and then you'd have to like. There's this whole side quest where you'd have to find Onomatopoeia. You know, I just think
I'm surprised that more superhero games haven't sprung up with the Arkham City type
Exactly. It's
engine and idea of like, because it is the perfect superhero game.
I think so. I think for Batman, and I think Ollie and Batman have very similar. I'm saying Ollie like I know him. Like I think they have very similar skill sets.
Yes,
but
I mean that's the reason why. I mean the TV show has taken so much from Batman's sensibilities and stuff, is because those two characters I think very easily can fit. They're both the playboy billionaire, like rich people who fund their superheroes activities, like.
Yeah, and I think that there's interesting avenues you could go where you take it. You know, there's the differences between them, which I think the show doesn't do enough. Which is they are very different characters. You know, Batman, you know, for all his flaws, he kind of trusts the police. Whereas Ollie has always been this type of character that sometimes, depending on who's writing him, he has like this distrust of the police, and he's a bit more of a anarchist, and he's very much a fighter for the little people. Whereas Batman isn't really. You know, Batman fights for everyone in Gotham. Whereas I think Ollie would be more of a. It could be a bit more of like a racially charged game, and a you know, you could have villains and storylines that are relevant to what's happening, you know, in the real world. Which is kind of what people have always done with Ollie. Like, there's the famous drugs issue with Green Lantern and Green Arrow. You know, you could deal with stuff like that because Green Arrow is the perfect character. Nobody cares enough about him that if you do something controversial, everyone's going to get up in arms. You know, no one's going to go. There's not going to be a title like, "Oh my God, you know, DC thinks Green Arrow supports, you know, the Democrats." There's not going to be that. There will be that with Batman or Superman, but like Green Arrow's always been this character.
Well, that's the interesting thing is Green Arrow's most recent, the Green Arrow Rebirth series.
Okay.
Which with DC Universe Rebirth, it's amazing. Super political. Ollie calls himself a social justice warrior, and it's about like. There's this giant corporation, and they're then called the Ninth Circle, and they hire all these like other bad guys and stuff. And I'm like, just how you're describing, I'm like, this would be perfect. Like you could deal with this kind of big business like coming in. You have the side characters, and then you can deal with like, oh, you have Count Vertigo's over here doing all this stuff. You've got this mercenary guy that he meets on this train, and there's just so much great stuff. And then you have like Black Canary who can show up and kind of just hang out, and you can
don't even get me started
partner up together.
Canary. I would definitely have it so that either in the game or in the sequel to the game, you definitely got to marry her. Like I love that relationship more than any other relationship in the comics.
Yeah,
it just makes the most sense, you know. Like
it does.
And maybe this is more because of our experiences. But whenever you see a superhero in a comic whose like wife is way more powerful and way more confident than them, you always go, "Yeah, I'm done with this relationship."
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's unique to us. But like, yeah, like it would be such a because I've been watching a lot of Supergirl recently, and I think it's a pretty entertaining show. But what it does, which is
Supergirl's great.
yeah,
I love Supergirl.
and what it does that I think is I quite respect is it doesn't hold back on this is clearly a metaphor for what's happening. You know, a lot of shows will be like, oh, we don't want to be, you know, we don't want to be too tongue-in-cheek, but Supergirl's like, no, you need to be tongue-in-cheek sometimes. Sometimes you need to make a character that is clearly Donald Trump, and you need to have other characters punch that character, you know, like...
Yeah. Have you watched Black Lightning?
Oh, dude, I'm so excited. Dude, I'm so excited.
Dude, you need this.
It's so good. I'm going to watch it literally.
So...
As soon as we finish the podcast, I'm not going to bed. I'm going to watch Black Lightning. And then I'm going to text you.
You need to watch it. It is amazing. It is amazing.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm derailing myself a little bit, but yeah, that's what I think I would do for a video game. I'm sorry I took up so much time, but like, he's such a dear character to my heart, and although he has been in video games and he's got his own TV show, there's still a part of me that like that goes back to I still don't think that enough people know Green Arrow. You know, they know Green Arrows, they know versions of him, and they know that he's snarky, and they know that he's this moody boy from TV. But like, there is a very specific Green Arrow. Yeah, there's a very specific Green Arrow who has a very specific moral values, and he has a very specific wife. And I want more people to know, you know, that because he's just I could just fanboy over him so much, but he is one of the best like superheroes, I think. So yeah, that's my
Agreed.
Game.
I love Ollie.
I want to know now, John, what your topic is, because I think my topic was just an excuse for me to talk about Green Arrow.
I mean, I'll take any excuse to talk about Green Arrow, honestly. So my topic, something I've been thinking about a lot recently. It's what is... I'm trying to think how to phrase it. Okay. What like fan base or piece of fiction or anything do you wish you were more of a fan of? So there's sometimes, especially on the internet, you see people who they're writing fan fictions, they're doing fan art, they're talking that they know every facet and every detail of a certain like either book series or TV series or comics or stuff like that. And there are times where it's like I get this feeling where I'm like, I like that thing. I don't like it as much as you do. But I wish I did.
Yeah, I think it's
important.
But
I wish I had the time and energy to put into it like you do, or that I've had the want or need to think about it as much as you do.
I think the word, I personally think the word that would describe what you're trying to say is passion. You know?
Yeah.
Like the passion for something. There's a distinction now that we don't make a lot about fans and like viewers and then fanatics. You know, I think everyone just calls people fans, but fan is such a broad term now. But like the original term for fan was like fanatic. It's someone who's super engrossed, like I am with Star Wars, where you could point at a character in the cantina and I would know their name and I would know a backstory. You know, like we all have something. Well, not maybe all of us, but like a lot of people have that for a lot of different things. You know, or for very specific things. Like I'm like that with Star Wars. I'm sort of like that with Star Trek. And there are things that we love, but there are also things that we just enjoy, you know? Like, I just enjoy some things. So I see what you're saying. It's something that maybe I enjoy, or something that maybe, and this is alluding too much to my answer, it's something I used to enjoy, that I wish I was more passionate about. I wish I had that fire for it, to learn everything about it, and to be able to talk to other fanatics and be like, oh, did you see this thing back in the issue or something, you know? I think I'm going to go first as well, because you so graciously went first in mine. And I appreciate that, because it allowed me to talk about Green Arrow for way too long. And I want to preface this by saying, this isn't just because you're the person I'm talking to. You did make me think of it. You definitely made me think of this as a potential answer, but I didn't choose it just because you're the person I'm talking to, even though it will seem that way. I used to be a fanatic about something, and then I fell out of it due to a couple of factors. One was age, the other was the ability to watch this thing, to kind of interact with it. It kind of got a bit more complicated for me, and the third, I think, was social pressure. I think not to a massive extent, but it felt like for me, it was a bit more embarrassing than even comic books at the time. Not really because my friends made fun of it or anything. I just think that it just had this stigma that, whereas comics has always been this thing that has slowly become more acceptable, this has always had this kind of stigma, and I hate that it has this stigma because it affected me, and I usually don't let stigmas affect me, but I let it affect me. I'm going to stop preambling now. I just wanted to do that. I wish I was still into wrestling, like really into wrestling.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
I was so. I remember Cameron. I remember this Cameron, who would never miss any of the events. Like I don't even know who fought in WrestleMania this year. If little Cameron, if teenage Cameron found out that I didn't know who fought in WrestleMania, he would be baffled. He would be like, "Well, what's the point growing up?" like, I used to be such a big wrestling fan, and I used to love it for, I think, good reasons. You know, I think there's this stigma with wrestling where people, and I don't think anyone likes it for the reasons that people think they like it, where it's like, oh, you bash people in the head, you know, or the divas, you know. I don't think anyone watches wrestling just for the gratuitousness of it, because that's not really what it's about. And when I was a kid, I didn't even care. They were like, when I was a kid, and this is weird because, like, this is unbelievable. But when I was a kid and I watched the diva fights, there wasn't a part of me that was like, oh yay, it's women. Like, I was just watching them because of the relationships and because of the characters, and I just, and they've made steps from what I've heard. Again, I'm not a fanatic anymore, but I've heard that they've made steps to make the divas a bit more inclusive and a bit less of, you know.
They dropped that name.
Did they really? Oh, that's good.
Yep, they're just superstars.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that the reason I regret it so much is because, again, like we just said, it's moving forward, just like everything else, just like comic books, just like TV shows. It's moving forward, and I feel like it's moving forward without me. You know, I have all these these gripes with wrestling that don't really exist anymore. You know, I have all these things that I was like, I wish they did this. I wish they did this less. I wish that they had these characters and they were less this. And it feels like it's to a point where, you know, all the gripes I had, they're moving to get rid of those and make it a better show. And I just think that, like, it's such a hard thing to get back into. It's like reading comics in the sense that you pick up issue 400. Just like, where are we?
Especially with something like WWE, which is like the longest running weekly episodic television series.
Exactly.
They just had the 25th anniversary of Raw.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
And yeah, it's crazy. There are times when I like fall out of love with it.
Yeah.
Like, wrestling is a very easy thing to kind of have waves and valleys, but I've gotten a new resurgence of like wrestling love, of watching non-WWE stuff.
Oh, okay.
It's really got me excited about wrestling. New Japan Pro Wrestling, Progress, Ring of Honor, these other smaller companies are doing really awesome work. And it's kind of like with comics too, where, like, you know, you get to a point where you're like, man, I'm just tired of Marvel and DC, and you start reading Image more, or, you know.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, wrestling's a hard thing, especially like the stigma you're talking. Like, I still get people who are just like, oh, you watch wrestling? It's stupid. Isn't it fake? And I'm like, well, yeah, duh. There's an undead wizard on the show. Of course we know it's fake. Yeah. There's a leprechaun. We're not pretending that any of this stuff is. I don't think Triple H actually is murdering people with sledgehammers.
It's interesting that you mentioned Triple H, because he was a big factor into me thinking this recently, because I saw a picture of Triple H, and I knew that he'd gone through a bunch of I mean, it's impossible if you don't watch wrestling for like 2 years. The characters are in completely different places. Maybe they're even good guys, when they used to be murdering people with sledgehammers and stuff. But like, I had such an obsession with Triple H. Like, Triple H, before I loved Green Arrow,
he's the GOAT.
Before I loved Plastic Man or Deathstroke or all these characters, you know, Triple H was the guy. He was just like, and it wasn't like I agreed with everything he did, because I watched him when he was a heel. I watched him when he was the worst, you know, when he was,
Yeah.
like you said, murdering people. It was just, his persona was just, every time he walked, because they were all huge guys. There was no way that you could go, oh, look, this guy's clearly the buffest wrestler, because there was always another buffer wrestler around the corner, you know.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about that. It was how he carried himself and the character that he played, you know. And again, getting into the whole fake thing. It's like, yeah, if it wasn't fake, it wouldn't be as interesting, I don't think.
Yeah.
Like
It's like this. There's a reason why I don't watch MMA.
yeah, exactly. The way Triple H carried, and we've talked about this before, the spitting water, like, it was such a silly thing, but I just loved it
I
so
still
much.
try to do that. I still try.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
And just like and the DX, you know, situation with Shawn Michaels, and like everything, he was just such an entertainer. He wanted, whether he was the bad guy or the good guy or the rogue, he so adopted that role in a way that I think even some actors can't do. You know, even some big
Yeah.
Hollywood actors, they can't adopt a role as much as Triple H did. And I saw a photo or a video of him, and he's got short hair now. And I know that he's a manager or something. And I just felt so like I hadn't talked to my dad for 10 years. That's what it felt like. It felt like I hadn't kept in contact with my dad, and then I saw him and he had a tattoo on his face, and I'm like, what happened, Dad?
Yeah.
You know?
What happened?
I just felt so bad for not keeping up with just this one character, you know. And there were multiple characters I loved. The Hardy brothers, like there were so many characters that, I mean, the Undertaker. When the Undertaker quit, I was like, what? Like, there's so many things that I just felt like they're just like these story arcs that I just dropped. You know, there are all these story arcs and story threads, and I just dropped them all. And now there are wrestlers showing up, like John Cena was in Ferdinand, and I was like, I remember John Cena.
Yeah, and somehow that's nominated for an Academy Award. That's...
Yeah. Alongside Boss Baby. Coco better win. If
Yeah.
Coco doesn't win, this is a complete separate podcast, but if Coco doesn't win,
Yeah.
I'll be very upset. I cried.
Honestly,
so
I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
Haven't seen Coco yet.
Take Chloe to see Coco. It's even if, and I'm not implying that Chloe doesn't understand intricacies of plot points, but like, even if like Chloe doesn't understand intricacies of plot points, even if she doesn't understand English, like the beauty of this movie, it just seeps off the screen.
Yeah.
It's just, oh, it's so good. I'm talking about something else now, but like, yeah. It's just, I miss it, dude. I really do miss it, but it's I don't feel the passion that it requires to get back into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was mine. Again, I didn't just say it because you were here, but I feel like it was more entertaining because you understood all the references I was making.
Definitely. I'm not saying mine just because you're here. But well, actually, not you really. Actually, this would be more your fiance thing. Harry Potter.
Oh damn! Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Harry Potter is just one of those things that I read the books.
Yeah.
I watched all the movies. I did the Patronus test, you know, and the house test. But like, that's the extent.
Yeah.
And I see all this. I see people who can talk about every side character and every fan theory and all the stuff about the Marauders and stuff that's pre-Harry, and I'm just like so lost. And it's weird because Harry Potter is one of those things that checks all of my boxes.
Yeah.
It's teenagers, it's school, it's magic, and people awakening to new powers they didn't know they had before, and fighting like evil government and evil bad guy stuff, and like, it's all the things that I should love, but for some reason I like it.
Yeah.
But I just don't have that passion for it.
I do find that it's funny though that you say like it's everything that you love, because it took me till now to realize that Harry Potter is basically like a British anime. Like, it's the closest the British ever came to making an anime. Like, it's so, like you said, school children. There's the chosen one. He's like the best. He's super powerful. He's a girl that he likes. And then there's three of them. There's always three of them. There's always two guys and a girl. You know?
And so it was just so weird for me because, like, it was funny because something that actually brought it up was because I shared a post on Facebook. I tagged you in it.
Yes.
Of like, it's a wedding reception and there's a thing of like, Harry Potter to the left, Lord of the Rings to the right. Instead of like bride or groom, it's, you know, which thing do you like? And I looked at that, and I thought it was funny. Then I thought about it, and I was like, those are both properties that I wish I had the passion for that other people do.
Yeah. It's interesting.
But for some reason, I just don't have that need to know more.
Yeah.
Like, I vaguely remember, like, all the teachers. I'm like, there's, like, Hagrid and, like, McGonagall, and then there's, like, the librarian guy.
Dumbledore.
Dumbledore, you know, and then, like, there's Cho Chang is a person.
I like
Neville cuts off the snake.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I love the idea of you, like, only remembering the most obscure characters. Like, there was Mundungus Fletcher, there was Remus.
I did. Okay, Remus, I understand. And I think another thing that brought this up was, like, on Facebook, like, I have these friends who are big Harry Potter people.
Yeah.
So they'll share these really emotional, sad, like, fan fiction things of, like, like, you know, of the Marauders hanging out. And honestly, I don't think I knew about the Marauders really probably until a couple of years ago when someone shared stuff like that on Facebook. And I'm like, oh, they were a group? I knew they were like friends or whatever, but they had a name.
They were a map-making company. I thought they just made maps.
I forget about Peter Pettigrew, that he was like a thing. I'm like, oh yeah, there's like Sirius, right? And then like, Harry's dad.
Yeah.
Who's like kind of a jerk, but then not.
Sirius
or Snape is still like a horrible person. I don't care what you say. Snape's kind of a horrible person. Sorry, falling in love with a woman does not negate the emotional and mental abuse to children.
I think the deep message of Harry Potter that a lot of people don't pick up on is that most of the adult men in that are actually bad guys. You know, Snape is still a bad guy. James Potter is still kind of a bad guy. Dumbledore, to an extent, is still a bad guy. Like,
they should put your name in the fire. The governor of fire. That meme, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things that I'm like, this should be something that I should care about, but I really don't. Like, I do. It's cool. I like it. But I was thinking about that because I was thinking of, like, between Harry Potter and Star Wars, which do I like better? Because neither are ones that I'm, like, super passionate about. Yeah. So I'm like, I mean, technically I should like Harry Potter more. Really, I should, because it checks all my boxes more than would. And I like all of the Harry Potter movies. I don't like all the Star Wars movies.
It's hard to.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's just really weird. That feeling of, especially when you talk to someone and you're like, oh yeah, I like that thing too, and then you realize how seriously outclassed you are.
Yeah, I've definitely been in that situation.
Oh wow, I must not like this thing that much, do I?
I don't think it's a case of not liking it. Like, I think liking something means you don't have to be. It's that case of being a viewer and then being a fan, you know, or being a fanatic.
Yeah.
There's the three stages, and I think you've been like, I'm a fan of Harry Potter, and then you meet a fanatic, and you go, I like Harry Potter, and they go, well, who's your favorite of the 4 founders of Hogwarts? You go,
and I'm like, there were 4 Dumbledore didn't found Hogwarts, or did he? I don't know.
So I have an interesting situation where I might very well be in the same situation for you if I didn't, you know, go out with Jen for 9 years, because like being with Jen is like it's impossible not to know everything about Harry Potter in the same way that she knows everything. She knows those Cantina characters just as well as I do. You know, she can tell you the Twi'leks in the background and what their names are, because like when you're with someone, I find that when people are and if you don't feel the same way, it'd be interesting to talk about this, but like when someone's passionate about something, and they're passionate to the point where they're talking about it and they're super passionate. If you're around that enough, you kind of start to get attracted to it in a way that you're like, tell me more, you know? You're like, it's not so much the thing that they're saying, it's the veracity that they're saying it with, you know? It's the passion that they're saying it with. It's like, you clearly love this. There's something I'm missing, you know? So tell me more so I can get it.
Yeah, I don't know how many times Christina's listened to me go on and on about a wrestling thing or about a Persona thing or just any of the like dumb things
Yeah.
that I get like super passionate about. But then there are times when like I would just get her talking about some of the weirdest old sitcoms,
Yeah.
or like,
Everyone has their thing, man.
yeah. And so it's, I don't know, it's always fun
Yeah.
being passionate about things.
And I think
And
that like being in a situation like this, I also have found myself unwillingly in a fandom. Like I'm in a fandom that I don't feel like I would have been in if it wasn't for this circumstance, you know. And I know things about this book series that I never even knew I was gonna need, you know. So it's interesting that you bring Harry Potter up today, because literally what I've done tonight, I went to work, I finished at like 5:30, and then at 6:30 Jan and I went to a Harry Potter quiz. We literally went to a Harry Potter quiz. There were 52 teams and she came third. I say she and not we because there were three of us. There was Jen, Jack Thomas and me. But Jack Thomas and me didn't answer any of the questions. she was answering them all. I think I answered one
oh,
and he answered one. But like, it's crazy because they were asking questions and I was like, I know that one, I know that one, I know that one, I know. And I was like, why do I know that? Why do I know?
Yeah.
Like, that Dumbledore's sister is an Obscurus and that wasn't revealed until Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And like, why do I know these things about these characters that, again, I don't love in the same way that I love Luke Skywalker, you know?
yeah.
So it's interesting, but I completely understand. Like, Harry Potter is one of those things where if you don't love it, if you don't know your house and you don't know your what would be inside your broom, it almost feels like you're outside of this club, you know? And
Yeah.
I have an interesting experience where I'm inside the club, but I feel like I've invaded the club. I feel like
You were. It's like when you have a house party and someone says, "Oh, hey, you can come," and then you bring your significant other, and they're like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, I assumed it was. We good? No, yeah, you're fine. No, it's cool. And you're like, okay, I just assumed like
Yeah.
one, you realize you're talking to both of us, like.
like no
I've
one
never
at
had
the
that
party is
situation
being
before.
mean to me. No one's being mean to me, but I still don't feel like I quite belong. Like,
Yeah, because
I'm
you
talking
didn't
to
you didn't
people.
get the letter.
Yeah, I didn't.
Someone else got the letter, and they just they shepherd you in.
Yeah, they were like, dude, this party's amazing. You can't miss this party. It's gonna be the greatest party. And then I was like, okay.
And you're like, well, isn't it
I'll
invite
go.
only? And they're like, oh no, you're good. You can still come.
And
But then
I go.
everyone in there has invites, and you're like, am I the only one that doesn't have an invite?
And then I'm talking to you at the party. I'm like on the phone to you, and you go, yeah, I just didn't really have an interest in the party. You know, it seems fun.
And I don't not like parties,
It's just, I like looking at the party. It looks like a great party. I've watched all the parties. I've read all the parties. I don't want to go to the party.
That's called being married.
Absolutely. I can't wait, John. In 2 months, I'm going to be at the party.
It's a wonderful life.
Oh, gosh. Well,
By the way, do you guys have a wedding registry?
I don't think so, no. I think
Okay.
It's a case of you can buy something if you want, but if you can't think of anything, just, I don't want to seem rude. Is this rude to say? I've never had to say this out loud, but like, just we need this money for the honeymoon, So if you have a
Oh
cool
no, that's a
present,
perfectly reasonable.
yeah. Like, if you have a present the idea that you think we like, then that's cool. Do that, But also, we also need money for the honeymoon. So it's it's the two options. We don't have a registry or
cool.
something because we don't live in a situation where we can really have many more things. Like, I don't have a cupboard where I can keep 16 toasters. So I mean,
See, the thing is that you just you turn those toasters back in for store credit.
exactly. Do you reckon I could do that if it was bought in America?
I'd love to see you try that.
Dude, if you buy me a toaster, I will laugh so hard.
By the way, fun tangent. A lot of people, like people who are not in situations that we are in,
Yes.
who've not been in long-standing relationships for the majority of their lives, they always have this saying of like, oh man, everyone around me is getting married.
Yeah.
This is like they like single people. They usually this is the age where they realize that like everyone around them either starts getting married or starts having kids.
Yeah, I've heard that
This,
from some people.
which is funny for me because I've usually been the married one.
Yeah.
But then this year I'm like, wow, everyone around me is getting married or having kids.
Meanwhile, you've got a wife and a kid.
Because there are like 3 weddings this year
Oh, jeez.
for
Oh,
people that I know.
I feel sorry for your bank account. I apologize. Yeah, dude.
Yours is it's the only one out of the country, so
Yeah, okay, fair enough. What about the state? Do you have to leave the state for others?
yes, actually.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
That's a damn
Nobody's
shame.
getting married where I am. It's all people that I know from work.
Everybody come to Alabama and get married in the hotel I work, so I don't even have to take the day off.
Yeah. It is a really nice hotel.
Fair enough. Yeah, I sometimes, like, I think about this a lot because I'm very excited for my wedding. I'm very excited to be married. I think, and I've heard this a lot, you should be more excited to be married than you are for your wedding. I get that. I 100% understand that. But also, I am excited for the wedding. But there's a lot of stuff around the wedding that I'm excited for as well, especially, like, your visit. Like, I'm very excited for your visit, and I'm very excited to see you, and we can talk more than with lag, because I don't think I've ever heard you without lag.
Yeah.
We're gonna be like interrupting each other because we're gonna expect
We're gonna talk
lag.
with lag. That's what we're gonna start doing.
I'm like, John, it's so nice to see you. Cool. But I'm very excited for that. But the one thing I always come back to, and this is a weird thought, I don't know if this is like something weird in my brain, I always feel bad, even though I shouldn't. I feel bad for missing your wedding. Because when you got married, I was in no way in a situation where I could ever come to your wedding.
Yeah.
We weren't friends to that point.
Well,
We were friends, but we weren't like that heavy like we are now, where we'll just tell each other
like
everything. And I think
I've been married for 4 years now.
which is bizarre. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, that was the beginning of my freshman year of college, of this semester of college I did. So like nobody was in a financial situation to
Yeah.
like do anything at that point.
But it's the financial situation. It's also like, our relationship has very much changed since then. It was 4 years
Yeah.
ago. Like, I have
Yeah,
friends
Jesus.
now that I didn't even know existed back when we were
Oh
there.
yeah, I've
Um,
moved multiple different times. And
To be fair though, you've been moving your entire life. I always tell people, you've been
Yeah.
everywhere pretty much. But like, it's this weird thought where I have, and it only lasts for like 2 seconds, where I go, he's got to have another wedding. I've got to somehow, like, because it awkwardly worked out that I'm coming to Florida, but you're not in Florida anymore. Like, you moved
Yeah,
away,
right?
and now I'm coming to Florida. So I was like, can we change it? Is there anything in Alabama that I can go see?
I'm 90% sure we could figure out a way to still meet up.
Hopefully. I don't want you to spend any more than you already have on me, though. Like, I feel terrible that you were like...
Well, I'm also we're going to be there for like a week.
Yeah, like, it's a holiday, I hope. It's going to be a
We're gonna see some castles. I think there are castles there.
Yes, dude. We have the best castle. We have the best castle. I'm not even going to do an
We
impression
have
of
the best castles. I want to see because my wife found this thing that she thinks is the greatest thing in the world.
Okay.
It's this small town with like the super long name.
Oh, Slangwai, Slambos, Slago.
Yeah. She learned how to pronounce it.
Oh
actually.
my! I can't even pronounce it all the way through.
And okay, is this a weird? I don't know if this is a weird. Jenny can speak like Welsh, right?
She can speak bits of Welsh. She can speak enough Welsh to teach, like, because you have to speak a certain amount of Welsh to teach, because they incorporate into the classes and stuff. So because she's a teacher, she speaks his bits of Welsh.
Is it weirdly attractive?
Dude, any language is attractive, but especially my home and native land. It is very
like
much
this because
attractive.
like she said that word and she like said the whole thing and I looked at her and I was like, I need to talk to Cameron about this. Is this just as natural?
I mean, it's interesting because you don't come from a country where you have a native language.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing, but like you always, I don't know about this. I can't speak for everyone, but I always feel like people who can speak Welsh are always the most impressive bilinguals to me, because it's like,
Yeah.
not only are they speaking another language, which already is crazy to me. Like I can only speak English, I can speak tiny bits of Welsh, but not only are they speaking a different language, but they're also honoring like where they came from in a way, you know. They're doing it in a more,
Yeah.
they've put time and effort into being like, this is who I am. I'm Welsh, and this is, you know, this is part of my culture. And especially people who move to Wales and then learn the language. Like I know people who came from Norway. They moved to Wales. I don't know people. I know one person, and they learned the language. And it's like, that is such, like, you are more Welsh than me. You are far more Welsh than me. Even though you grew up in Norway, you are way more Welsh than me. Because it's this very poetic language. I mean, how our language was built on poems. Like, all we did was we sung and we said poems to each other. And that's how we communicated. Not exclusively, but that's the way we preferred to communicate. If you ever go to a Welsh, anything Welsh, like a Welsh ceremony, a Welsh assembly, a Welsh concert, there's very little banter in between the songs, because what's said is in the songs and in the poems, you know? It's got an interesting language in the sense that it's not very practical, in the sense that it takes a while to say things. But the reason we take a while to say things is because we want to say it in the most poetic way possible. You know?
Oh gosh, that sounds like that is my jam.
Yeah. So that's why I love the language personally. But yeah, I think objectively it's quite a nice language as well, even if you aren't from Wales. But you guys, if you can make it there, because that is an interesting place. They literally, like, if you translate the name of the town,
it's like a tourist trap.
Yeah,
basically, like.
Well,
isn't it? It's like the church by the willow underneath the. It's like just landmarks in the town. Is the name
like
of it?
Next to the mountain of. I don't even think it was built as a tourist trap. I literally think it was just like, we don't know what to name it, but they've kind of cultivated the idea ever since it became famous.
Yeah, I want one of those T-shirts.
I think, but there's a lot of great places, and I think you're gonna. I honestly think you're gonna have a blast. I'm making jams.
Part of me wants to like be like an annoying drunk American, but part of me like is afraid I'll get murdered. Because part of me wants to drink in a pub,
dude.
But then part of me is like, am I
Dude,
gonna get punched in the face?
You're not gonna get punched in the face, and I'll tell you why. One, we're not England. I'm joking. I'm joking. Any English listeners, I'm joking. No. First of all, like, that's a bit like, I don't know anyone who hates Americans, and this goes for England as well. I think people joke a lot about Americans.
Yeah.
But recently, like, I think Bush era, and I'm weird. It's weird that I'm doing this by presidents, but I'll explain why. Bush era, there were some people that were like, Americans are stupid, like, Americans are crazy. Obama era, it kind of stopped. It was a bit more maturing, you know, as the world.
Yeah.
We stopped hating people because of where they were from at that point, or most people did. I can't speak for everyone, obviously. I hate that people are stupid. But anyway, now we've moved into this whole new phase of Britain's relationship with America, where we feel so bad for you. Like, we just feel bad. We get all these things of the women's marches and the all these different things that are happening. And I think more than ever, Americans are showing that they are not their government. They're showing desperately. They're going, the government and the American people are two very separate things, you know? I think. And, like, I mean, there's women's marches in London, I mean, especially, but there's also women's marches in Cardiff, which is the capital of Wales. There's women's marches in Swansea, which is like a small city in Wales where I went to university. Like, we're all doing it not against our government, we're doing it against yours because we feel so bad for you. So I don't think that there's that air of, oh, dumb American anymore. I think if you would speak and they can tell you're an American, they'll be like, stay here.
They're like, have a drink on us.
Yeah.
We're sorry.
The second reason is because, like, if you want to go to the pub, like, me and my friends will take you to the pub. Like, we're not going to let you, like, drink by yourself. So we can go out, and we'll definitely go out and we'll have fun. I'm honestly, it's awkward because I'm really considering taking way too much time off. Like, I've already got to take the wedding off, obviously, and a couple of days around the wedding to have the planning and also the aftermath. And then I'm taking the honeymoon off as well. But I'm really considering just taking, like the week before the wedding, or pretty much the day you get here till after the wedding, because I just want to hang out with you, really. Just like...
I see. That was I was talking to my wife and the two friends that we have coming with us.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
They're not there for the wedding. They're there to just go to Wales and
Yeah, that's fine.
go see like London and stuff and all that. But and Christina's like, you realize like Cameron's getting married. You can't just hang out with him the entire time. And I'm like, no, I know. I'm just saying we'll see each other for a little bit. I wasn't.
It would literally be like, Christina's like, John, where are you? I'm trapped in Wales alone. Meanwhile, me and you are playing video games. Like, you could be going seeing castles and countrysides, but we're just sitting inside playing Super Mario or something.
I will bring up something once we go offline about something I'm planning on doing over there.
Okay, fantastic. All right, well, I think that's I think we talked a little bit personally there. But there you go.
Yeah, we went, a little over, but
yeah, the listeners can just enjoy our actual friendship as well as our...
it's our show, it's our rules. So, you know what? Start your own podcast.
Yeah, start your own podcast. Don't complain. Stop complaining.
Yeah, start your own podcast. Honestly, yeah. And also, like, just a little side note, like, if you do enjoy something, pay for it. Because there's like a podcast that I really like that I think is going to go away because they're like not able to keep up the fees and stuff of running it, and it makes me really sad.
What podcast
yeah,
is that?
Straight Shoot. It's wrestling. Straight Shoot.
Dude, that is right. Straight Shoot is interesting. I've never listened to an episode ever, but I love it so much because of how much you love it. Like the amount of stuff you tweet at them and retweet. I'm like, dude, John loves these so much that I love them now. I've decided.
It's my favorite wrestling podcast, and I hate it because I just only started recently becoming a patron to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're going to hit the goal that he needs to be able to hit for them to keep the show running, which really sucks because that's one of my favorite. It's a really great community and a really great show. So, just in general, not for our show because we don't have any sort of schedule or Patreon or stuff like that because we would have to, make episodes at a normal rate.
I think we'd also have to talk with other people in mind instead of just talking like we're talking.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying
instead
to be
of just using this as a reason. Yeah. Yeah. Well, if we are entertaining, cool. But
By the way, side. I know I've had so many sides, but like,
sidebar.
We also need to, and I'm doing this on air so that maybe that'll carry more weight, I guess. We need to do something like creative as well. I love the podcast, I do, but I miss creating with you. I miss the stuff we used to do.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that. Now, this is awkward. I want to let the listeners in on this. I'm using a software in which I instead of being able to go, bye guys, and stop recording and then talk to my friend, like I would do it as a normal human being, to end the podcast, I now have to hang up on my friend and then call him back. All right, anyway. Hopefully, we'll be back. I don't want to say soon. We'll be back when we'll be back. We'll be back when we can figure it out.
In the foreseeable future when you most need us.
God, remember when we said we were going to go for like ages? It's been 2 hours.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to talk to my friend, but also hang up with him. So I'll see you guys in a bit, and I'll see you, John, in a second.
Bye.